and welcome to another episode of Tech Hour. I'm your host, Simone Smith Bean, and I'm so excited to welcome an amazing guest to the show today. She is the Caribbean's brightest mind in the tech space, a true tech pioneer. She is the founder of Silicon Carib, a digital and media events company, Kingston Beta, Jamaica's premier tech hub that supports startups, founders, learning how to navigate the industry, and the Caribbean Seed Fund, bringing together US and Caribbean based investors to make early stage investments. She has received numerous awards and recognitions for her work within the industry. Better known as the Caribbean Tech Queen, please welcome to the show, Ingrid Riley.
Oh, thank you. I hate that phrase. I totally hate that phrase, but okay. All right.
So, Ingrid, I'm so grateful that you could join us
Yeah.
today.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here. And it's so important for us to really touch on some of these topics. Tech Hour is here to really shine a light on people just like you
Yes.
and things that are happening within the industry. So, please tell our audience a little bit about yourself and how you got in the tech space.
It really was really by accident. In my previous life, I was an investigative journalist, and my family happened to be one of the first three owners of an internet service provider here in Jamaica called Jamaica Online. So I used to hang out and all the various modems. So of course I'm aging myself. I'm very much Gen X, and and so and when I was at the Observer, which was the first upstart newspaper in Jamaica, they made sure to find the edge in terms of being online and doing things with the internet. So those two things kind of made me fall in love really hard with the internet, and so I decided to follow my curiosity, which led to me creating the Caribbean's first internet guide called iGuide. It led me to start a Dutchbot Interactive, an interactive agency, and then Kingston Beta, and then Silicon Carib, and then that's been like 16 years ago. And so it's been a hell of a ride to over the last 16 years to do 300 events across 10 Caribbean countries and the diaspora, to have the number one Caribbean tech blog, siliconcarib.com, to have our own ecosystem builder brand, which is Kingston Beta, which is the Caribbean's first and longest running tech events for starters, for entrepreneurs, and for tech talent. And so all those things kind of weave together my love of the Caribbean. And so it's all really focused on the mission of how do we tell our stories that entrepreneurship and innovation and excellence lives in the Caribbean beyond the beach? How do we tell our stories to each other and to the world? And how do we also connect each other, connect the people and the businesses that are driving and shaping what I think is the future of Caribbean tech and business? How do we connect them and make interesting things happen? Business, new business, investments, the whole 9 yards. So that's been my world for the last 16 years. And it's been mostly fun, but like with any other journey, it has your ass kicking moments as well. So I'm here 16 years later, still loving it and still doing what I want to do and expanding forward. So yeah.
So that's true. We as Caribbean people have been in the emerging space of finance and all of the other things that we do amazing. But when it comes to tech, this has been something that has been new throughout the industry, new and for us. And so, I mean, 16 years is a long time to be in the industry. I
Yep.
mean, I started in 2016, and I feel like that was ages ago. And so, as the saying goes, a year in tech could be in 10 years,
Listen,
just like 10
listen,
years.
listen, especially with AI now, you feel like 1 week is like 10 years, right? So yeah.
Exactly. Things change so fast. So how have you seen, it's particularly in your space, how have you seen the industry merge, and how have you seen Caribbean people really find their way?
We tend to I believe, underestimate our own people sometimes, maybe because of how we were socialized, whether from colonialism or whatever, right? But we like to try new things. We like to experiment. We like to, be there when the first thing happens, or create the first thing that is to happen. And so we are just seeing a fantastic spirit of experimentation. I have seen people collaborating, whether it's within Jamaica or within the Caribbean, right? And or with the diaspora as well, because that migration factor or diaspora factor looms large in terms of all the things that are happening in the region as well. And I've just seen this great spirit of experimentation. Thankfully, over time, we have come to understand that failure is just simply a stepping stone. It's not something that you need to personalize and call yourself a failure. And so I've just been seeing some really fantastic ideas, startups, doing great things, failing, starting again. It's just been interesting to see the ebb and flow of the ecosystem. And of course, across the region, all Caribbean nations are at different levels of development. All Caribbean nations have different priorities in terms of what they want to be great at, or what they want to invite into their space. So it's been a very dynamic culture to observe these last 16 years. And of course, back in the day when you started, talk about things like the internet and doing internet businesses, people look at you like you're a crackhead. I was like, what is this bitch talking about? Like, what is good, right? It's not until
Honestly.
it's not until I was like in 7 years in, they're like, oh, and it only happened because the narrative from the States started to seep in, where
Correct.
entrepreneurship is sexy, tech, infusing into different industries is where it's at. And they're like, oh crap, that's what she's doing. And also, oh crap, she's 7 years ahead of us. There's that side of the story.
That's it, exactly. You know what surprises me all the time is that when we walk into a room, or when we are engaged on the Caribbean level, and then you see the international people come in and they start engaging with us.
Yeah.
Some of the people who have been in business so long within our countries,
Yes,
tend to be taken aback by how much we know. And it always catches me every time, that I'm like, well, where do you think how do you think we're progressing? Like, where do you think our education is not leading us to being greater and knowing more and contributing more to our societies?
absolutely. I was like, that the internet works here in the region as well, right? Like,
Exactly.
we have the internet, we have mobile phones. Can you believe that? We're not all, which is why I always say that my mission is that I'm proving entrepreneurship, innovation, and excellence lives here beyond the beach. Because again, for decades, we've been positioned as a place you come to simply vacation and have great drinks by the beach, and just, smoke or whatever it is. That's one story, right? But that cannot be our only story. Like anybody else, like any other, region, like any other nation, like any other individual, we're all multidimensional. So tech, I think, has given us that ability to even showcase how multidimensional Caribbean people are, how bright we are, how experimental we are, how forward-thinking we are, how problem-solving we are, because we're like any other humans in any other part of the world. Simple.
And you know what? And we want to succeed and strive and
Absolutely.
create
We
and
want to
be and
create, we want to be rich, we want to do a
that's
bunch of
right.
different things. We want to be at the vanguard of things as well. So yeah, we're just like everybody else.
So you recently launched a newsletter. Is this the newsletter that comes out every week? Its issue comes out this week. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so Silicon Carib Insider is really the exclusive newsletter from the blog. So every Tuesday, I'll be sending you basically news, insights, data, startup spotlight, Caribbean tech events. It's all focused on, who are the people, who are the businesses that are driving and shaping Caribbean tech and business. Every Tuesday, it comes out. So I write it because I've been in the business for 16 years. I have a lot of tentacles everywhere. And there's a beautiful thing too, is that people send me stuff. And so I say, hey, Ingrid, this is happening or that is happening. And I kind of wanted, again, to put in a very a single space that people can have access to. You can just go to SiliconCaribbeanInsider.com and subscribe. It's free. And so every Tuesday I put out this newsletter that is meant to be like a weekly capsule of some of the action that is happening, not only in the region, but also in the diaspora.
Well, let's talk about some of these new emerging companies that are coming out. So in Jamaica, you guys have been very forward thinking when it comes to payments and payment connections. And yet we have not yet seen
We have?
well, okay, wait, let me bring it back. Right? Because there has been a lot of things happening in the payment space in silos, in the Bahamas, in Barbados, in Jamaica. I've seen companies come out, but I have yet to see companies connect so that we can start commercing across borders within the Caribbean. And that has been one of the drawbacks that I keep seeing in the space. Like that's a whole loophole that we are not touching. But talk more about some of the companies that you've seen come out and new technologies that you think are very interesting.
Well, we have to talk about, in terms of like the payment scenario, we have to go back to the background as to why this has been the case, why we haven't had maybe like a Caribbean-wide, payments platform like a PayPal or others. And it's strictly politics. We know this, right? It comes from our colonial background, where we have this banking system, the banking infrastructure that's been 99.9% from outside in. And
Canada.
Canada, primarily, the States and that kind of a thing. And they try to dominate and set the rules in terms of how we move and manage our money, with each other in the region, and of course within the region and internationally. So when we have these bright people who come on up and say, hey, you know what, we want a PayPal in Jamaica, we want to be able to have a Venmo, in Barbados or Bahamas, they're like, what? No. They have it elsewhere, but no, we want y'all to keep paying us ridiculous fees.
Our central bank can't talk to your central bank, nor can we transfer across borders. And it's a risk because Jamaica's risky, Bahamas is risky, Barbados is risky. So no.
And we all know it's all politics. And that's why I love Marla Dukaran, who is that Caribbean economist who really kind of spotlighted a lot about how the gray listing, which is hella racist and hella classist. Let's just be real. And so there's 100%. that sort of a fight politically. And then, of course, when you have a uber conservative individuals that may be running the central banks, and they're trying to also, again, even though you may have, like, say in Jamaica, there's an NCB bank, is owned by a Jamaican Canadian, and others. They're still almost like these banks act like cartels, right? They act like they act in their own interest. And this is not just a Caribbean thing. It happens in other markets as well. But we're talking specifically about the Caribbean, where we have these young people, whatever, these innovators that are pushing the boundaries, are seeing the needs of the customers. They're understanding the growing, the digital culture, and they're trying to create products and services around it. But these banks have been fat cats and have been laggards for a while. And so what they want to do is either buy out or buy into those innovations, but they don't want to come and compete in the space. So if you want to see truly independent and thriving, successful payment startups coming from the region, they're going to have to play some politics. I understand that Canoe out of Bahamas wants to do a super app for the region. I really hope he gets it done, right? And there's a guy that was out of St. Lucia. Can't remember his name right now. No, not St. Lucia. U.S. Virgin Islands, right? And he also got to a certain path as well, and then he reached that wall, right? And so when we understand, and we have to call it out, that the movement and management of money globally, and the Caribbean is no different, is highly political. And for you to be successful in that space, you're going to have to understand the politics of each nation and be able to navigate and negotiate to get it done. Not saying it's not going to be possible, but it's you just have to understand how the game plays. And there's no there's a reason why you have like the Visas and the MasterCards all of a sudden being very, very, very visible and moving in certain spaces across the Caribbean, because they want to shore up their marketplace. They want that money moving through their networks, which is another reason why Bitcoin and blockchain, people are afraid of it unless they're in control of it, right? We just have to say, I'm not saying that this is impossible, because I think we will continue to push the boundaries and to find ways of working around this culture, and find allies who want to actually do things differently because they see the value in that. And because they realize that, my God, the Caribbean, no matter how small, supposedly small it is still a very lucrative industry in that payment space. And that's just the payment space, because there's a whole bunch of other things to get involved in. So, yeah.
I mean, payment corridors that are flowing consistently between the United States and the Caribbean is so massive. It's billions of dollars a year. And so I agree with you, if we're not really putting pressure on the political side
Correct.
to change the policies in order for us to really grow, then we're just towing the line at this point.
Absolutely.
And I've seen other companies come out with crypto solutions.
Yes.
And Bitcoin being one of those cryptocurrencies that that a lot of people like the buzzword of Bitcoin and see the movement of it and whatnot. But the real point of crypto is really to make things seamless, to make sure that transactions are able to move across borders quickly in seconds, supposed to be seconds, frictionless.
Yep.
Right. We're not waiting 2 days for wire transfers. But we have yet to see a technology company really pick that up to say, let's create a Caribbean wallet for everybody. And now we're commercing. And the one thing that it would assist us with is food security. People have yet to really understand why the payments thing is so important and how it connects to ensuring that we no longer are reliant on only one region for food. And so I think a part of the conversation must be, how do we sustain ourselves?
Absolutely.
How can we sustain ourselves as a Caribbean bloc?
Absolutely.
And I'm hoping CARICOM brings this as one of their topics. If not, invite us, CARICOM.
Yeah, or I tend to like, which is why I have done what I've done over these years. I like the bottom-up approach, the community approach, because when there's that pent-up pressure, and people are seeing the data as well that that backs up that pent-up pressure, then when politicians have that pent-up pressure and they're going to have to think differently and to do differently. And so I think with that paired that with our allies who, yes, of course, they want to see things, be a little bit different in the Caribbean, but they also, of course, want to be part of the opportunity. Ain't nothing wrong with that. That's business, right? But I think it's going to be a very interesting 3 to 5 years, because people like us, people like others who have been at it, whether you're in it for 5, 10, 15 years, we want different for our region. And we are not prepared to live by the rules that have prevailed over the last 50, 100 years. And if we want to have the Caribbean come off the plantation and come off the beach and be really a region that is digital Caribbean actually means something. And that we're, as we say, our politicians say it a lot, that we've got to diversify our economics outside of tourism. We've got to broaden the pool in terms of who we are and what we put out in this world. Then technology, is definitely going to be the driver, not a driver, the driver for us to achieve that. So how can we stop ourselves from growing when the rest of the world is growing past us? So
yeah. Ingrid, are we serious about doing business within our own space? Bottom line.
I believe we are. But again, give an example. In Jamaica, it was known for decades that we had these 14 or 21 families that pretty much run things, right? They initially were responsible for around 70% of Jamaica's GDP. 70, right? One thing happened: access to capital. Access to capital through loans, through different banks, through credit unions, through diaspora money coming in, being used differently. Investors from a different flavor, different mindset coming in. Access to capital has made it so where they've moved from having us in a chokehold of 70% of the GDP to now down to 32%, and is trending down. So just simply access to capital has completely changed the face of business and investing in Jamaica. And no, they're not going down easily, of course not, right? There's this tussle because money is power, is influence. That's how it is around the world. But throw on top of that now the internet, people being exposed, people getting new skills, people, throwing that now, investors from different countries around the world are looking for different places because places to invest, because they realize, oh, innovation is everywhere. Duh, always has been, right? So we have that mix coming up, and that is literally changing how we do business in Jamaica. That, I believe, is happening, I'm sure, in different flavors. It's certainly happening in Bahamas. What is going on with, they have positioned themselves to be the crypto capital, or digital assets capital of the region. Let's just see how these no-nonsense community leaders, entrepreneurs who believe that things can be different, who want to do things differently, how we'd actually listen to each other, how we actually collaborate with each other even more, because it's been happening. I can't. There's such a rarity now in terms of the startups that I'm seeing winning and doing certain things that don't have maybe another Caribbean person in their team. That's changed drastically over time. Or just simply say, what, hey, we're in Jamaica, but I'm trying to come into Barbados. I'm trying to come into Bahamas. I'm trying to come into Bermuda. How can we do business where you can get a piece of the pie, I can get a piece of the pie? There's more knowledge and understanding in terms of how to do that. And I think there's a hunger and there's a drive, again, just wanting things to be different.
I think collaboration in that space is very key to that success.
Yeah, absolutely.
Particularly when it comes to identifying who you could partner with.
Yeah.
And how that partnership can really benefit on a wider scale.
Yeah.
And be that support, because funding is a very, very big part of being successful. Very big part. And you guys have a fund at the Caribbean Seed Fund. How are you contributing to solving that problem currently?
Well, Caribbean Seed Fund is we just started this, right? It really was. There's a relationship that I had with this white Jewish tech billionaire called Martin Babinek.
They're usually white and Jewish in tech. I swear. That is, no shade. No
shade at all.
Shade.
No shade, because 25% of my background is actually Jewish on my mother's side.
Right. And to be honest, most of the companies, I recently worked with the company for the past 2 years. And one of the founders of the company was a very, very serious white, older Jewish man who gave all the money, and everybody else in the company was Black. So, I mean, this is something that I see on a regular occasion.
Yes. So he reached out to me like 10 years ago, and he was like, people like that who will watch you, who watch the developments of things happening around the world. And he was already in Jamaica doing some cool things with Food for the Poor. You come here, you give back, that kind of a thing. And so we kind of kept in touch over the years. And then last year, he saw that I put up Rebel Ventures, a fund. I was just kind of trying to test the waters with some things, right? Because I said, let me try and convert all of this currency that I have and all the access to this data and people that I have into doing some investments versus what I did before, which was atrocious. And so he says, Ingrid, what do you want to do next? And I say, one of the things that I know we need to do is to have a fund that acts differently than a VC fund. That is not your typical thing, that understands Caribbean nuance and the culture, understands the opportunities that are in the Caribbean, that understands the need to pair the Caribbean region with the diaspora, plus people who are so engaged, who want to be involved in things that are new and that kind of a thing. And so we had a conversation. He says, okay, I'll help you to do that. And I was like, yeah, right, sure. And I walked away from that meeting going like, yeah, man. Let's just say in April, that was November. In April, we were at Beyond the Beach event where he invited some of his richest, most successful friends from the States to come to the Jamaica and also find some of the most open, progressive angel investors here in Jamaica. And we had an invite-only event called Beyond the Beach in Jamaica, in Kingston. 45 people, and we're to talk about, okay, well, what exactly is this opportunity? And I brought some people some startups there to pitch who were what I consider to be ready for investment. Two of them got investment, one with Techstars, one with an angel. And I said, this is just a small, example of what not just happening in Jamaica, but across the region. And I think, we can do something here. And so fast forward to this weekend, we're all going to Tech Beach. We're all also going to have our own retreat because he's bringing on some more investors, some women investors as well, to meet with some people here. And then next year, we're going to have Beyond the Beach 2 in March, which will be double the size. And that's when we'll officially launch the Caribbean Seed Fund. And we're going to start small, right? Because it's a managed seed fund. It's almost like a 3.0 version of an angel syndicate, right? But what we've not done before is to pair Jamaican investors with American investors that go out to go and look for deals. And so by next year, we'll have it fully in place because we have a lot of legal things to do. Because setting up a fund in this country, because of certain legal frameworks that are still in place, is ridiculous. So on the one hand, we're doing a lot of work trying to get people here to form funds. And there's a lot of interest. There are things that are happening. But where we have to register, and then we have to put the money, and we have to flow the money, it's been interesting. Let's just say that way. But apart from that, Caribbean Seed Fund is here to fund early stage startups, regardless of the sector, in tech. And so we're going to start doing some deals next year by, I'd say maybe around Q2, early Q2 next year. So that's what we're doing.
Well, we're certainly excited to welcome you to the Bahamas and Bermuda when you're ready.
Yeah, man, we're going everywhere. We're not, as long as we're welcome, we're going everywhere, wherever there's
100%.
some really good stuff to see.
Anything you need to get welcome, trust me, I am here to welcome you in either jurisdiction, whichever you wish. And we certainly would love to be in the room when you guys launch in March. So please send us an invite if you can.
Oh, love that.
And I'd love to cover it. I'd love to cover it.
Absolutely.
So with that in mind, Ingrid, finance and funding is one of those real sticking points. So I'm so grateful that you're doing this. But where do you see the future? How do you really see new and emerging technologies really solve problems and deal with the issues that we may be facing in our countries to, better our circumstances?
Yeah. You see, I have a hashtag, always bullish, right? When it is, sometimes you have to be delusional in addition to being optimistic.
I like that word.
You have to be. As an entrepreneur, you have to be, right? And as an investor, even more so, you put your money in the line, you're like, I know some of that we're bun up. I mean, like, blow the hell up. But
gone,
never to come back. But what remains is going to be beautiful, right? And so I'm always bullish on Caribbean tech. I'm always bullish on, our Caribbean people and our ability to create and build things that matter to not only our nation, but matters to the region and matters to the world. And so on all levels, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in 3 to 5 years. Without question, there are going to be some Caribbean nations, again, that are ahead of the game because they either had community leaders that's been working in the space for a while. They have progressive politicians that clear the path, whether for taxes or investments, incentives, or whatever it is, or look at what Bahamas did with, their digital assets regulation. And so different nations are going to be at different stages, but it's going to be beautiful to see what unfolds in Jamaica, in Bahamas, in Barbados, in Trinidad, in Curacao, where I was a few weeks ago. People are just doing different things, and they're creating their own priorities, and that is what's going to be exciting to see, whether we do it within our own nations or we do it across nations by collaborating with each other. It's, for me, I'm always bullish about the Caribbean, so I'm excited to see what unfolds over the next 3 to 5 years.
We certainly are a very resilient people.
We are.
Very
I'd like us
resilient
not
and
just to be
creative.
resilient. I'd like us to be goddamn rich.
Oh,
Right?
that's coming. I'm gonna put it. And I have to say, we are our goal. One of my goals as a tech entrepreneur, as well as somebody who promotes the industry, being a part of Caribbean Blockchain Alliance, my goal is
Yes.
to really cultivate billionaire status within our countries. Billionaire
Absolutely.
status.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the first whale to come about, but it's gonna come.
Yeah.
And if we continue to focus on how we can solve those problems that are affecting us here and also in the diaspora, the
Yes.
wider diaspora, I
Yes.
believe we can make it to that space, and we need to connect with
Absolutely.
our African brothers and sisters as well. So
That
much
part.
things are happening on the continent.
That
If we
part.
connect with our African brothers and sisters, I can
That part.
guarantee you we can get to that billionaire status very quickly. It's coming. Join us, people. Join us on this movement. Ingrid, thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
for
being
having
on
me.
the show.
Thank you for having
We
me. I appreciate
appreciate
it.
you. And I hope to get you back on. I'm definitely looking forward to your event in March. And
Yes.
I'll 100% be in Jamaica so I can cover it, and we can have another interview about how
Yes.
Caribbean Seed Fund is coming. And look out for Ingrid's newsletter. Subscribe today. Ingrid, how can we find you on social media?
I am everywhere. I'm most most active on Twitter, Ingrid Riley, and also on LinkedIn, Ingrid Riley. And yes, please do subscribe to my newsletter, SiliconCaribbeanCider.com. Every Tuesday, we're going to try and blow your mind every Tuesday with some of the things that are happening across the region and the diaspora. So thank you so much, Simone, for having me. I appreciate it.
Great. And please check out our episodes, everyone. Check out our episodes on YouTube, on Facebook, and like us on Instagram, like us on all of our social media pages. And again, for another episode of Tech Hour, we are here to create, collaborate, and connect. Join us next time.